Hi, this is Alicia with Falcone Family Farm, and today we're going to go over the differences between goats with horns and goats without horns. So if you're just about to get into goats, this is a question we had, is whether or not to go with goats that had horns or goats that did not have horns. So all goats are born with horns unless you have the ones that are genetically born without horns, and those are called polled goats. Otherwise, a lot of times goats are disbudded when they are 2 weeks of age or younger. Just as the little horn buds are coming in on their head, it's a really hot iron that is used, and the goats are restrained, and you burn off the horns so that they will not grow in as they grow and mature. So us personally, when we were looking into it, we thought it was really cruel to do the disbudding, and so we didn't want to have anything to do with it. We went out and we looked specifically for goats that had their horns so that they hadn't gone through what we said was the trauma of having their horns burned off. Our excuses for it besides that was also that it's beneficial because we do live on a mountain, that they need some sort of protection from wildlife, which when you have miniature goats like us, it might be different with the more standard size goats, but for us having mini goats, having horns didn't really make a difference. We still had a mountain lion try and take our goats out because, you figure with the does, their horns get maybe that big. So it's not enough to defend against a mountain lion that's going to come take them down. So as we had goats for a while, especially the bucks, we found that the horns can be a pain. I've never had a problem with goats having horns and injuring each other. They will use them against each other, but I've never had it be such a massive deal that it's like, oh, you need to remove their horns. No problem there, but if you do have bucks and they smell does in season, or you just have an ornery buck, they'll use those horns on you. There's been more than one occasion where, my husband was in the pen taking care of fixing something in their pen, and our male that we had at the time just whammed right into his legs and took him out. And needless to say, my husband was not thrilled about that. So I had decided after having those goats that had horns that, no more males with horns. I can do females that have horns. But then with the addition of when we had our little girl, then horns did become a concern there because not all does are nice with it when it comes to horns. So that's where at that point I did start disbudding babies, whether or not we decided to keep them or not, because most people do want their goats to be disbudded because that is a requirement in order to take them to goat shows if you want to do that. Luckily, my girl Roka is really good with my daughter, and she has her horns. I do remember when we were first kind of introducing our daughter to the goats that she kind of made it look like she was gonna thump her, and that's where I had to warn her, is like, don't you dare, and I made it clear to her it's not gonna happen. And so Roka is actually very tolerant of our daughter being around her now and petting her and brushing her. So I'll kind of go over the pros and cons to see which is best for you, if horns are a big deal or if you're going to want to go and get goats that are disbudded or polled. So some pros to having goats with horns is that the goat doesn't have to experience that pain of having the horns burned off. The horns act as a natural temperature control for goats. The goat can defend itself from some dangers depending on the size of the goat and the size of the threat. Horns make natural back scratchers for goats, and goats love to spar and headbutt with each other. Some cons to having a goat with horns is that they can be a concern around young kids, whether it's accidental or intentional, that your kid could get poked. A goat with horns can't be shown at a goat show. They can, in rare cases, harm each other. They are better equipped to easily damage and kill your trees with their horns, and their horns can get stuck in certain types of fencing or feeders. So again, it's up to you as far as my experience with baby goats getting disbudded, because there is a lot of fear with that and that it's very painful and it will do damage. You just need to, if it's done correctly, it's horrible for those 10 seconds that the goat has to be pinned down and have that done. But a lot of times you just put the little antibiotic ointment on the horn area and get them a baby bottle, and usually, from what I've seen with our baby goats, they're back to normal and go on with the rest of their day. Because after you've used the iron on that area, it's pretty much deadened it, so it shouldn't be that painful. I'm sure a little bit of the surrounding area is going to be a little bit tender for the next following days. But for the most part, I have not seen real scarring, traumatic issues with doing the disbudding. I won't do it myself because I don't want to screw it up, so I actually go to a friend that I have down the road from us who is used to doing it. She's done it several times, and I've never had a problem. She's done a great job. There was a breeder that I was going to go to where they actually were a vet, I believe, and so they had things to make it more comfortable for the baby goats. I can't remember if they actually would put them under or they just had the stuff they needed to really numb the area so that the baby goats don't even feel it. So there's ways to go about it if you're concerned. Like I said, it's not as traumatic as I thought it would be. It's just kind of just get it done, and then life's pretty much back to normal, and they're good to go. They might be a little lethargic for the day after having something like that happen, but usually within 2-3 days, they're completely back to normal. So hopefully that was helpful if you're planning on getting into goats. If you already have goats, I would assume that once they already have the horns, you're not really going to get rid of them unless you're really going to traumatize the animal, because at that point you do have to cut the horn off, and it's just not worth it. I'd say either they got to be disbudded when they're babies, or you're kind of stuck with it. But that about does it. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you in the next video. Do you like chickens and technology? Then you might want to look into the Smart Coop. This coop is equipped with a heavy-duty run that is great for keeping out predators. It's got a camera indoor and outdoor to keep an eye on your birds 24/7 for you to view. There's a convenient little run door so that if you want to let your chickens out into your yard, they've got easy access in and out. A smart door automatically opens and closes at daylight and at night so that it's hands-free for you, so you're free to go about your day. If you think this coop might be the coop for you, I have a link in the description below.